So I was looking at the website, styxworld.com. Okay, everybody
Yes,
should go
indeed.
visit it. But by the way, I really like the picture of the band with no clothes on from, what was that, 70 what?
1972, our first album, and actually we were not completely naked in there. We had these, although actually the band wanted to be.
Yeah.
But some of the wives were sort of up in arms, and so we put on these tea-stained underwear, which I guess was colored for these pale white guys. And some of them actually can show through if you look closely enough at the photo. But, you know, they tried to have like we were naked in this foggy
The
smoke.
dry ice.
Dry ice deal, yeah. And so that's the first album in 1972. We were trying to be edgy.
And then Styx takes off. And I was reading your bio, and what I was surprised at was what you said was your greatest regret in the music business.
Well, I mean, growing up on the south side of Chicago, I was a fan of blues, and only, even now in the last 5 years, I've just come to realize how close I grew up to Willie Dixon, to Muddy Waters, and actually, 1983, we had our Kilroy Was Here thing, which was kind of the end of the glory days of Styx, where we were not getting along, and it was one guy's dream and the rest of our nightmare. But during that year, Muddy Waters' manager had an office like 2 blocks from my house, and I was invited to go to Muddy Waters' house for a barbecue. I mean, and this is probably the greatest blues singer to ever walk the face of the planet, and I'm invited to his house. And he doesn't live that far from me, it turns out. But we had things to do, and we had gigs booked, so we had to go. And and then he passed away maybe 2-3 weeks after that. So
never got another chance.
No, and I was fortunate enough to meet Willie Dixon and actually sit in a room with him, and I've become famous friends with his widow, and it's one of our big causes now is Willie Dixon's Blues Heaven Foundation, which helps out the old blues guys, but also is there about educating people about music publishing, which Willie was a big advocate of, controlling your own publishing, because so many people got ripped off, and obviously we know that an English band that shall remain nameless, but most of you already know, took a lot of his songs, just put their names on them as if they wrote them, and they became, monstrous sellers, and ultimately it all got resolved, but you have to protect yourself out there.
Well, and the early guys did really, kind of get screwed over a lot financially.
And I mean, it's still happening to this day. It's not quite, maybe so much obvious black on white. It's, people steal. They don't discriminate who they steal from. They'll steal from everybody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the great thing about Willie Dixon's Blues Heaven Foundation, there's an educational notion about the whole thing that, how to protect yourself as an artist, really, is where it's coming from. So
that's really a good thing.
It's a great thing.
Yeah.
And it's housed in the old Chess Studios at 2120 South Michigan,
Wow.
which is where the Rolling Stones recorded. They came from England because they loved the sound so much. They came to my hometown of Chicago and recorded their second album, parts of it anyway, at 2120 South Michigan. There's even an instrumental on that 12x5 album that is called 2120 South Michigan. And that is there now as a museum. And we did some of a recording from our Big Bang Theory album a couple of years ago. Right in that same spot where Muddy Waters stood, where Willie Dixon stood, where Buddy Guy stood, where the Rolling Stones stood, where the Yardbirds came and recorded I'm a Man in 1965. They followed the Stones in there. We stood in that same spot, and I like to say that was the day that Styx got their mojo back.